Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mari Fuji, and I'm a board member here at Rancho San Joaquin. Just a note that we are recording the Zoom town hall meeting so that we can share the recording with those residents in our community who could not attend. And I'll email the YouTube link to the board members in our neighboring HOAs so that they can share it with their residents. I'd like to welcome everyone to our town hall with the Irvine Police Department, who will speak about illegal and I would say very loud street racing that's taking place on Culver, University, and other nearby streets, which has become an important safety and noise concern for us all. Before I pass the baton on, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the residents and homeowners here who are not only from my HOA, Rancho San Joaquin, but also Princeton Townhomes, Columbia Square, and Turtle Rock Crest. So I'd also like to thank the Irvine City Council members, Larry Agren and Anthony Kuo, who added this topic to the City Council agenda to discuss at their meeting about a month ago, in which the Irvine PD discussed this very topic with the City Council. And from that presentation, there was so much interest from the community that we are the very first ones to hear from the Irvine PD on this topic. So I'd like to introduce you all to our first brief speaker here, Irvine City Council Member Larry Agren. Council Member Agren.
Thanks, Mari, and thank you to all of you who are in attendance. This is a little bit of a first whoops, there we go. A little bit of a first for me and for others who are participating, but I'm proud to be a part of this this effort to hold a town hall to deal with public safety issues and to have the participation of our outstanding police department here tonight. And I'm just going to take a moment or two to do a big shout out to our Irvine Police Department. You know, for 15 straight years now, we've been the safest city in America for a city of our size. And we're very proud of that. That's as measured by violent crime and our ability to deal with that, suppress it, and so forth. Well, we're very proud of that record, but we're proud more that people regard Irvine as a safe city, and for good reason. We have just an outstanding police force. We believe in community policing. We have among the best educated, best trained police officers in the whole country, and they deal with all manner of things, not just violent crime, but violence in terms of traffic offenses, all kinds of safety issues, and quality of life issues too. And I know tonight's presentation deals largely not so much with violations of law, but with a serious quality of life issue that is part and parcel of our mission to make our city not only safe, but a wonderful city in which to live, do business, and otherwise participate in community life. With that, what I'd like to do is just take a moment to turn things over to my chief council executive assistant, Jean Barron. And I think then she's going to make some introductions of the police officers. We'll be into the program and looking forward to hearing from residents tonight as well. With that, Jean, take it away. All right.
All righty. Thank you. And this is meant to be a really informal event. So you'll be asked to participate after the presentation. You can use the chat room and put some questions in as you're hearing the presentation. And why don't we start, Mari, why don't you launch that poll? We have just a 2-question quickie poll just to kind of give you a flavor of what will be discussed and presented tonight, and to see how it's a little complicated as well. So take a minute, read the poll, and just anonymously you can submit your answers. And then here's what will be happening tonight. We'll have a presentation from members of the police department, about a 20 to 25-minute presentation. Again, please participate and submit some questions in the chat room. You can also we'll have a discussion after, so you can ask your question real time. But the key is for an informal discussion. And joining us tonight from the police department, we have Lieutenant Matt McLaughlin with us, and then Sergeant Jasper Kim and Sergeant Garrett Gales. And they've got some wonderful PowerPoint slides and some video. So this is a wonderful opportunity to have a chance to talk with them and learn some more about this very tricky issue that's a problem here in Irvine, and you will hear in the whole county. All righty, I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, thank you, Jean. My name is Matt McLaughlin. I know Jean just gave us some intros a moment ago. In a moment, I'm going to pass off the stage, so to speak, to my partners, Sergeant Garrett Gales, Sergeant Jasper Kim, to provide you with a PowerPoint presentation that gives you an overview and a backstory on the issue of loud and modified vehicles and exhaust, as well as the racing vehicles that have been brought up for a topic of discussion. Both at a recent city council meeting, as well as obviously tonight. They're going to give you some history. They're going to provide you with some statistics, and they're also going to provide you with some very relevant and recent videos that were captured either in the city of Irvine or in the county of Orange. And we'll provide you with some narration as you're watching the videos to explain what you're viewing, what violations are occurring in front of you, and then also what type of methods we use to try to combat these kind of crimes. And obviously, as Jean had mentioned, we're trying to make this as informal as possible. So the more questions, the better. And our hope is that at the end of this presentation, you all leave feeling a little more informed of what's going on out there in Irvine in the county of Orange, and what we as Irvine Police Department are doing to combat this crime and increase your quality of life in this wonderful city that we all live or work in. So I'll pass it off at this point.
All right, thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. I'm Sergeant Jasper Kim. I'm going to share our screen so we can start on our PowerPoint presentation. We have a little bit of lag with the computer system, so just bear with me.
We can see it, and I think you just need to switch to presentation mode.
Yep, I'm trying to do that now. Perfect. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Once again, so Sergeant Jasper Kim, my partner Sergeant Garrett Gales, will be talking about street racing and modified exhaust enforcement. All right, I do want to show you this video. So this one, it did occur in the city of Irvine. So this was back in January of 2019. And this was when our city became more well aware of these incidents of what are called takeovers, where individuals will basically block off intersections and start doing these dangerous acts. So I will play this video and let you all watch. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, as far as in the middle, the vehicle that's doing the burnouts is known as a swinger. And what that individual is doing is basically doing burnouts in the middle of that intersection. Several hundred people that are surrounding and watching this incident occur are known as spectators or blockers. And what they're basically, their sole purpose, of course, is to watch these illegal acts, but they're also, their duty is to basically intercept and intercede and block any type of law enforcement efforts to deter them from any enforcement operations. Going through a little bit of a history. So back in the late 2017, several street racing and illegal car groups began converging in the Orange County area. So these takeover crews began multiple intersection takeovers and basically culminated with street vehicle car clubs and became known as takeover crews. So as I kind of mentioned before, as far as with the intersection takeovers, they generally consist of numerous spectators. There are onlookers and blockers that'll cordon off the intersection perimeters and allow the swingers to basically do the burnouts in the middle of the intersections. These vandalisms, and we do consider them violations of vandalism because the damage caused with the entire rubber burning onto the to the roadway is upwards into the thousands as far as what the damage is caused. So this video you'll see here, I do want to kind of give you a your discretion. It's not necessarily anything that's vulgar, but there are individuals that get struck by this swinger. This actually occurred in April of 2021 in the city of Anaheim. Oh, that's right. Out there.
Might be a little too low. You can try.
All right. So folks, I do want to tell you, I mean, I think the video kind of speaks for itself as far as the inherent dangers with these types of actions and, you know, the carelessness, lawlessness of these individuals that participate in these types of acts. You know, as here as this next slide kind of goes into as far as with the tragic consequences. So back in 2018, Los Angeles Times report basically provided this statistic, which is to your left. So who dies from street racing? Okay, you look at as far as the numbers. So it's about 53% of individuals that are kind of either unassociated or unintended, not necessarily the suspected racer or the swinger, the individual who's doing the burnouts, unfortunately succumb to, you know, tragic loss of their life. The little photo snippet up there, I don't know if you folks happen to recall, but this was a takeover in the city of Costa Mesa recently, earlier this year, where unfortunately an individual who was hanging off the passenger side of this truck that was doing a burnout lost his life when the vehicle basically turned over and crushed him. Of course, as far as from a law enforcement standpoint, you know, we as the Irvine Police Department didn't necessarily think that this was anything that we could just pass off, right? This is definitely something serious that we had to take a look into. So our traffic bureau reached out to multiple law enforcement agencies throughout Orange County and started having meetings to see as far as what we could possibly do to potentially quell and stop these illegal acts. So with that, a development of a countywide street racing and takeover team was established. So, and actually this is our year anniversary. This month marks our year anniversary where our task force has basically been established. So, you know, we have a multitude of county agencies that work with us on a every weekend basis where we're going out and ultimately trying to stop these individuals and prevent any type of incidents of tragic losses, and of course, with any type of criminal activity. So, I mean, ultimately with this countywide task force, ultimate goal is of course with the safety of everybody, right? So our goal is to go out there and prevent these individuals from actually setting up and doing whatever we can to stop them from coming to our beautiful cities. So with this, as far as with the establishment of our countywide team, we have we've seen a dramatic decrease in these illegal acts occurring throughout the county. And we receive weekly reports from our county partners, and it has been extremely effective. This video here, it goes into a little bit of length. I'll kind of cut through as far as fast forwarding through certain parts of it, but this footage, what you will see now, is from the Orange County Sheriff's Department's helicopter, which is also known as Duke. So we regularly use a air unit to assist us as far as with our enforcement efforts when we are out there conducting these street racing enforcement operations. So this was back in April of 2021, where there was a takeover in the city of Santa Ana, and our task force was alerted to this, and we responded accordingly. So I'll let you watch. This one was kind of low.
Yeah, one looks like a silver Nissan.
Sorry.
Bags.
313, copy Emerald TV, report 1001 North Tustin.
Alright, 10-4. Yeah, just once you land and you record, just pick up a couple of vehicles and we're gonna go in the area and then we'll all roll in together. Took one, copy. Yeah, we can see there's a good amount of vehicles there right now. Alright, copy that. Let's get a unit east of Fairview, a unit on Harbor and Warner area, a unit at Warner and Susan area tucked in, and then we're going to use a unit north of Fairview and school area, Guinness High School.
So we're going to mute this as we narrate just a little bit. So as you can see, the helicopter's pulling up, and the spectators and the people that are doing the takeover are not aware that the helicopter is coming. And this is definitely a tactic that we use, the helicopter to our advantage. So they capture things on video that we then will later bring to court once we follow the swinger away and are able to safely stop them away from the group. If our law enforcement officers were to enter a group like this, they're swarmed by all the spectators, and it becomes a very unsafe situation very quickly. So as you can see, they've got more than one swinger in the intersection at the same time. They're swinging with people hanging out of the cars, waving flags or just waving their own arms. And all of those spectators are just several feet away from them. So this goes on for a little bit. The helicopter will watch the swinger, and then you can see that in just a moment, they'll call in members of law enforcement, and it's very obvious when the members of law enforcement come in, as you'll see all of those spectators begin to scatter, and chaos ensues.
Should be here momentarily. So I do want to kind of touch on, as far as working with the street racing task force, and my partner can probably attest to this as well. These are actually well-organized car groups that communicate through various social media outlets, and they know basically what to do. So I mean, we do our best to kind of keep up with them, but they're pretty well organized. Right here. All right, in about a minute or so, less than a minute, you'll see, as far as you'll kind of see when our officers start kind of proceeding towards that intersection, as the crowd will start dispersing all over the place. Sure. All right, I'm going to turn the volume up again.
Well, yeah, myself.
Skip it.
Maybe.
Sorry about that. No worries.
Copy
I'm going to
15.
skip ahead a little bit, just
Let's take, and then, unit going,
And 246 Alpha, please going to be clearing current 2009.
we have our 3 units at Harvard and Fairview, standing by. What's going? Alright, let's all head in, blacked out, and then lights on at the last minute. Just be careful of 505A. Indiana, you said you have no one south of on Yale. I'm going north on Yale from Warner. Yeah, me too. Alright, copy. Alright, so we'll try to block this whole, block all of Harvard as soon as we get there. Yeah, and dude, just keep an eye on that white car for us. Yeah, we got it.
of course, getting notified that
swinging. They're just waiting for that one, but there's no one who's been swinging in the last minute or two.
So what I'd like you folks to do is just kind of try and pay attention to this vehicle, but also the vehicles associated around it. You'll see a law enforcement vehicle pull up behind it and attempt to do a traffic stop. And some of the actions taken by at least the spectators that are out here, and what they do is basically act as blockers as well and try and stop police vehicles from intervening. Right there. I'll turn up the sound again.
And there's also a tow truck involved.
Heavy Orange Mustang, almost a 245 my car.
That might be what I'm assuming is what you're responding to.
So I don't know if you folks heard about that radio call from one of our officers. So a 245 is an assault with a deadly weapon. So another vehicle associated with this particular takeover incident, the suspected driver attempted to ram one of our police officers in their patrol car. So after this, I'm going to go through another video basically showing kind of the aftermath of a vehicle fleeing from trying to escape custody.
Copy, you want to go to green one? This is Bo from Station 39.
All right. Okay. So I'm not sure if you folks happen to see this on the news, but there's a vehicle that was this vehicle in general, and I'll play the video. But this suspect in the vehicle was driving in excess of 130 miles an hour, basically along the LA freeways of the 605. And I believe the 5 freeways, blacked out, mind you, which is all the lights off.
There he is. Yeah, I got him. He's on his brakes, hard on his brakes. Yeah, he's blacked out.
And this driver had come from that same event that you just saw broken up by the police. So this is the same night, same event. They don't like to stop for police oftentimes.
Mustang. Orange Mustang. Thank you, Catherine. You're on it.
So yeah. Just to kind of conclude this, as far as it's kind of a long video as far as with the pursuit, but the suspect was safely taken into custody. I can pull in here, right here. He ended up pulling over in the city of Hawthorne, where California Highway Patrol officers were able to catch up to him and take him safely into custody. We, of course, having a victim officer, responded up there and ultimately took him into custody. All right. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my partner, Sergeant Garrett Gales, who's going to go over some additional information.
Thank you. So these numbers were shared at the council meeting on June 22nd, and we'll go over them again. But I just want to touch this issue had become an issue around 2018 and 2019, and it only became worse with COVID. So what we saw was that a lot of the streets were empty. People used it to their advantage to go out and do takeovers or street racing. And it became a much bigger problem for us, especially with how prevalent it became on social media. So in addition to the fun that they're having while they're out there, they're getting credibility, if you will, for posting it on their social media, for being there, for getting their own, that's why everyone is filming it. So what we see are these events, but we also see the reckless driving behavior, and people are doing what we call one-offs, which is where it's not necessarily an organized event like you just viewed. It's another event where they're just with one friend or they're by themselves, but they're still videoing their reckless driving it and then posting it to their social media. So one of the ways that we have been able to combat this is addressing certain violations. One of those violations is loud exhaust. If you're here and you live in the city of Irvine, I'm sure that you've heard loud cars drive by. They're annoying. Different people have different issues with it, but loud cars with modified exhaust, yes, they are illegal. I don't mean to jump to the answer of your poll, Gene, but they are certainly illegal. They're not allowed to be more than 95 decibels, and every vehicle in California is required to have an adequate working muffler. So that is one of the sections that we cite for. And I'd like to bring up some of these statistics that you see on your screen right now. So you can see the arrests and citations, how they've been going up since 2016 to 2021. I'd like to specifically point out that just last year, from 2019 to 2020, we have had an increase of 38% in citations and arrests that are related to both street racing, takeovers, and the loud exhaust is included in that as well. And then from 2019 to 2020, we've seen a reduction in traffic collisions related to street racing and takeovers. The reduction has been 84%. So again, those are numbers that we shared with council, and we're very proud of those numbers. We view those as evidence that what we're doing is working. So just because we are not always in the city with our street racing and takeover enforcement team, we're addressing the same problem. We're addressing the same individuals that are causing the problems for our residents. They're going to these organized events that are in Orange County, but not necessarily always in our backyard. We've been successful in our efforts. Specifically, what have we done to address these problems? So we have officers that go out just looking for these loud vehicles. We have officers that are going out just looking for the street racing and takeover vehicles. And as my partner Jasper Kim just mentioned, we have the street racing and takeover enforcement team that meets every week. And they're not bound by the borders that we have with the city of Irvine. We can go through to different agencies that are participating throughout Orange County, which makes us significantly more effective, and it increases our numbers. We, in that, have had partnerships with other agencies throughout Orange County. We do information sharing. So when we get word that a group might be meeting in a certain city, we can call that city, we can let them know, and we've networked in that way. We've put up message boards. Some of you may have seen the message boards that we have around the city. This says loud exhaust will be strictly enforced. That's more of an education campaign so that people realize that yes, loud exhaust is illegal, and yes, we will be addressing it with citations. More recently, we've outfitted a significant number of our motorcycle officers with decibel readers so that while they're in the field, they can test the decibel level and more effectively conduct enforcement on those loud vehicles. The training for our officers. So our overnight shift officers are sometimes the newer officers. They're the ones with less experience, not always, but sometimes. So we've made an extra effort to go and educate those officers. We're putting them through classes which teach them how to identify modifications for vehicles, specifically loud modifications. And then they can address those issues as they see them at 2 a.m. when some of our motorcycle officers might be sleeping and not necessarily able to respond, to help them out with some more experience. We've also collaborated with the Orange County District Attorney's Office. So Sergeant Kim had mentioned vandalism. Vandalism is something that has come from some of our experience with all of these marks that are left on the ground. When someone is intentionally doing a burnout in the middle of an intersection, as you've seen from some of these slides, it creates a change in the aesthetic of the roadway. It also makes it more slick. We don't want that on our roadway. It makes the paint so that you can't see it. We have to restripe. It gets very expensive. And so we've successfully had prosecutions of some of the swingers in our city of vandalism, which will be a felony versus something like reckless driving or street racing, which might just be a misdemeanor. So we've been able to think outside the box in order to address these issues. But at the end of the day, we do absolutely rely on our partnership with the community in order to respond to these problems. So I want to remind everyone here that we want to listen to you. We want to hear from you. If you see or hear these problems that are occurring, please call us. Please call our dispatch line or our non-emergency line if it's not an emergency, or 911 if it is an emergency. We'll listen to you. We can send officers out, but we can't be everywhere all the time. And so when we hear about a problem that's occurring at the same location on a certain night of the week, if we hear that, we can address that, and we would like to. We welcome these type of community events. In fact, we're working towards one that's going to be on September 18th on the morning. If any of you remember the event like Coffee with the Cop, it's going to be similar to that, but with traffic officers. So you can come, you can talk to traffic officers, you can meet the ones that are going to be doing traffic enforcement in your neighborhood, and they'll be listening to your concerns, and you can hear directly from them as to maybe what hurdles we face, and just meet them and figure out what they're about. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We're very pleased that we get to be here. Councilmember Agron, thank you, sir. And Jean, thank you as well. This will conclude our presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Mari, are we?
Yeah, so what I can do, Jean, you want me to share the results of the poll?
I want to do that, and I want to remind everybody who's still with us, if they have any questions, to use the chat room, and I'll be happy to read them. And then also, Larry, if you have any questions, I know I've got a couple, but why don't we do this? Let's do the first polling question. If you want to just put that up, and I will, yeah, so let me see. Is a noisy car exhaust illegal in California or the city of Irvine? And correct, no. Let me see, I'm tripping myself up. No, they are illegal. So let's talk a little bit, if that's okay, with our presenters, and explain how tricky it is in terms of how you have to hear the noise, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to hear the noise, and then B, it has to be over a certain threshold, and that's sometimes tricky. And then maybe talk a little bit about the ticket process.
Sure, that's a great question. So there's a couple of different parts to that question, and if I miss any of those, please remind me so that I can come back. So there's specifically two laws that have to do with exhaust. One of the laws is that you have to have an adequate muffler on your vehicle. The other law is that it can't be, your vehicle can't make sounds over 95 decibels from the exhaust. And so the 95 decibel law is a tool for us, but it's much harder to issue that ticket and get a conviction in court. We are in a noisy environment when we're doing car stops. If I do a car stop at the intersection of Jamboree and Main Street, then there could be hundreds of cars, some of them maybe even louder than the one that I'm stopping, that are going by that could interfere with our decibel level test. It creates reasonable doubt if you were to go to court. So a much more effective violation for us to cite for is the adequate muffler. What we look for are vehicles that either have what's called a muffler delete, where they will take out the muffler entirely and just replace it with a straight pipe. Makes it very, very loud. It's without a doubt responsible for some of the noises that you're hearing late at night, the muffler delete. So they also will put an aftermarket muffler on there. There's many, many companies that have aftermarket mufflers. Some of them are going to be legal in California. Some of them are not going to be legal in California. There's all sorts of things that are going to impact it. And that's one of the things that we train our new officers on. So you might have a legal muffler for California, but you can take off the catalytic converter, or you can get long tube headers, and you can make other modifications to your engine that will then make that muffler above the 95 decibel limit. So there's different factors that go into it. There's lots of different modifications. We look for all of them. We do get convictions in court. And it's part of our job as well to be educating the judge sometimes as to what those laws are and how we can enforce them in our city.
And if I could just also add to that, as far as with the ticket procedure and the enforcement, we do have a plethora basically of officers that are specifically trained as far as for vehicle modifications and inspections. So regularly, as far as what those modifications is, Sergeant Garrett Gales kind of mentioned, we do inspections on these vehicles that we stop. And if any of them are not necessarily legal in the state of California with any type of parts that they may have gotten that are aftermarket, they do get sent to the state bar, the Bureau of Automotive Repair, the state ref, as it's also commonly known, and which basically kind of prohibits them until they get the vehicle up to specs legally to drive on the roadway.
Okay, and well, let me ask a follow-up then, and then I have a question in the chat room. I've been reading a lot about the Cadillac converters thefts, that there's been a lot of information about people stealing, and these are expensive parts, $700, $800 parts, primarily in a lot of, well, anywhere in the parking garages. And I think the police just issued a press release of an incident maybe in Portola. But tell me if I'm right, is the Cadillac converter responsible for the loud noises? Is that what makes the noise loud?
So the catalytic converter, the catalytic converter, it takes all of the soot and grime and everything that, not everything, but a lot of it that you would be shooting out the back of your tailpipe, and it keeps it from going out there. And so it's essentially a filter. So California has very strict emissions laws, especially with catalytic converters. So when you take off a catalytic converter, you can get more horsepower out of your car, and it can become louder. Particularly, sometimes you'll hear the cars that sound like you might hear they sound like gunshots almost going off, like a cracking. That would be a car that might not have catalytic converters, not always, but most of the time. And then it would be tuned as well. So there's different things with the catalytic converter, but most of the time when they do it, it's to gain more horsepower, and as a result, it will also make it louder.
Okay, all righty. And let me go to the chat room. Typically, we sometimes hear racing noise late at night. And this could be from University Drive or Harvard, Jamboree, Irvine Boulevard. I mean, take your pick. So the question is there something that the police department does to monitor more closely these streets, what we call drag strips? Do you pay special attention to certain parts of the city, or is this more of a citywide effort?
So our officers that are strictly on patrol, of course, kind of are bound by the calls of the community. And, there are calls that are prioritized based on the severity of the incidents. So our patrol officers are regularly out on the streets 24/7. We do have traffic officers that are assigned, throughout the week at various hours that go and try and identify some of those problem areas or issues. Like my partner said, I wish we could kind of be everywhere at once and to kind of resolve all the issues within the city. But, we do rely on you, you know, as the community to contact us and address some of these issues. And if there is a specific time where it's, you know, repetitive, whether it be on a Saturday night or Sunday morning or whatever the case may be, just let us know and we can definitely see about working out an operation to see what we could find.
Great.
Jean, I got a couple of questions directed, I guess, through the chat room directly just to me. One is somebody asked recently the city of Irvine upped the speed limit on University between Harvard and Culver to 55 miles per hour. Could the city lower the speed limit back down again?
So an excellent question. Many people don't realize that the drivers actually set the speed limit. So the public sets the speed limit. Most of our roadways that are not residential, University being one of them, is surveyed. It's surveyed by our traffic engineers. That survey is usually completed every 5 to 7 years unless there's some change in engineering to the roadway itself. So when a speed limit is changed, it's because they've done a survey, and in the survey, they'll check the speeds of approximately 100 cars. Now, they figure out an 85th percentile. So 85% of the cars are traveling at a certain speed or slower. And then they are allowed to deviate under most circumstances 5 miles per hour, plus or minus, depending on the roadway conditions that might not necessarily be readily apparent. So the public sets the speeds. If you want the slower speed limits, drive slower.
Okay, and then the second question, Jean, that was sent directly to me in chat, and I'll open it up, you know, let me know when you want to open it up for people to unmute themselves. Because we're so close to UCI in our HOAs here online, are the UCI campus police involved in noise and racing enforcement?
Yeah, sure. As far as specifically in regards to the UCI Police Department, they're not necessarily part of our task force, but I do know that their officers are post-certified and post-trained, which is basically the peace officers of standards and training. So they are provided and afforded the opportunity to get all the information and training that we all have here in Irvine. So I do believe that they do address the issues as they can. As far as the university aspect, that they are kind of contained, you know, within their university property.
Okay.
Why don't we open it up? And,
Okay.
And then I do have a question. I was reading about another community, I don't know where, not in SoCal, where what they did is they came up with a program called Take It to the Track. So they built a track somewhere where these car enthusiasts could go in a, you know, not on a public road and safe environment and do their thing. Do we have is there anywhere that street racers can go for this sport, so to speak? Legally?
Yeah. There are different events. There's sanctioned events, and you can actually find them on YouTube. They're where they call it a pit. It's it would be a boarded off area with barriers, and there's bleachers, and they'll do drifting and street racing. So I'm not aware of any of those locations in Orange County, but I know that we do have some in Southern California. It's been brought up before. However, there are certain hurdles such as land, sponsorships, and funding for that as well, because it does become an issue. As you could see in the video taken from April of 2021 that happened in Anaheim, it's been my experience that a lot of the thrill that they're seeking is being put in a dangerous position and running from the police. So it may be successful given certain circumstances with different crowds. But the crowds that we have been addressing with the takeovers, I would remain a bit skeptical that that would work and appease them per se.
Okay.
So Jean, I've allowed anybody can unmute themselves if they'd like to answer or ask a question from the floor. I will, just one more came through chat and I'll just read it, and it came directly to me, but somebody wants to know if the street cameras are being used to fight this illegal street racing issue.
So we do have cameras posted at most of our major intersections, and they have the ability to record upon command. They are not actively recording at all times though. One method we commonly use them for is when we get a call for service about racing vehicles or vehicles doing donuts at intersections. Dispatch has the ability to pull up that specific intersection camera up in the dispatch center and then provide live feedback to the officers who are responding to the scene to address that issue. And that seems to be very, very helpful because the officers then get a detailed description of the involved vehicles. They get an idea of how many people are actually on site, and they can start developing their tactics while en route to the location to figure out how to contain the involved parties and work their investigation from there.
So Jean, I do see a couple of people unmuted themselves. So anybody that wants to ask a question can go ahead and do so.
Yeah, I have a first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the department. The IPD has done an outstanding job of keeping our area safe, and for that we're very grateful. Unfortunately, in the last year, it's only been in the last year that we've been really bothered noise-wise by these loud racing vehicles on University, Harvard, and Culver. You can hear them coming, and you can hear them coming past. Then you can hear them going off, and for miles you can hear them. They're that noisy. It's not only a nighttime event, however. The intersection of Harvard and University seems to be the launch point for a lot of southbound or eastbound traffic on University to race. And there's the entrance to the park there, which is a very logical place where your traffic officers in the past have used their radar guns to nab the speeders that drive excessively on University. And I would think that at the right hours, that might be a good place for the evening police to locate a car occasionally to try to nab these people. But is there anything that we can do as residents to assist you in trying to control this? We don't have the swingers, the show-offs that do the donuts in the intersection so much. We just have these the speeders that are trying to race one another that raise a whole lot of noise. So maybe you can help us with that.
Thank you, David. First, I'd like to thank you for your support and encouragement. It means a lot to us to hear that you support us as police officers. I have personally been the motorcycle officer working speed enforcement on University for many, many years. The zone that's there it used to be down a lower speed limit. I believe that recently, or in the last few years, it changed to 45-mile-an-hour zone. Changed it a little bit. We also got a stop sign over there. But what we need from the community members is to identify any patterns. So as a community member, if you see that it's Friday night at 10 o'clock or Saturday night at 2 a.m., if there's anything that will help us be able to send an officer or a group of officers to go address the issue more specifically, because we become much less effective if we send an officer out there and we have a time frame of, let's say, 4 or 5 hours when he just has to sit and wait. We might miss it. It might be in another area. So that's what you can do. Another hurdle that we face, it's very frustrating for us at times as law enforcement officers as well. We can issue lots of tickets, and we do, for loud exhaust, but those tickets don't necessarily mean that the people we're issuing them to are going to get their cars fixed. They can pay that fine and not get it fixed and continue to drive with loud exhaust. And we've seen that. It's frustrating. So as law enforcement officers, yes, we issue those tickets and we make them correctable, which means that the fine is going to go down from about $200 to about $25 if you get your exhaust fixed. But for a lot of the people that like loud cars, they're going to pay that $200 fine and not necessarily get it fixed. They're going to be right back on the street. So yes, it's frustrating. And we know that if it's frustrating for us, it's equally, if not more frustrating for the residents who have to hear it at all hours of the night.
Can your cameras capture the license plate identifications of these vehicles?
If the vehicle's at the right angle and obviously in a stagnant location for a period of time, allowing the dispatcher to toggle the camera and focus in on it, yes. But again, we're working under a time limit, and sometimes the angle in which the vehicle is parked at an intersection doesn't allow the camera to pick up the plate clearly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I see Gabriel Rao unmuted. Didn't know if Gabriel wanted to ask a question.
It's in the chat, but I don't know if you can see it.
I don't know if I see it, Mari. It might be to you.
Let me.
It's about no parking signs. Irvine has a lot of no parking signs, and usually you get a ticket when you park there. But on our street here, Columbia, there are parking by special permit only. On the weekend, there are 50 cars parked here, all young people with about 50 young men playing basketball. They don't all live here. None of them lives here, but they never get a ticket. But suppose I park there one morning and unload my my stuff, my car, because it's a little bit closer to my house. The police is there to give me a ticket. But these guys, the young men, and they have the loud cars too, of course, they can park there for hours. Some parks park overnight. What are the non-parking signs for?
Sure. So I'm sorry about your concern, and I promise you that the Irvine Police Department is not targeting you specifically. We have parking officers that are on duty at certain times. Most of those times are during the day and during the weekdays, not necessarily the weekends or the weekend nights. So if you have a concern, like I had mentioned, with a specific time on the weekends with a group, what we can do is we can make a detail where we have parking officers that might come in on overtime or come in, and we will change their hours to come and address those issues specifically to help your neighborhood, or even come up with a different place that they can park so that they can still enjoy the basketball courts if those are going to be open to them. We recently did this with another group that just started permitted parking within the city, and overnight hours was the serious problem. So we had some police officers come in extra early, and then we had some parking stay extra late to help address that issue. But once we hear about those issues, we can certainly help resolve them.
Thank you.
I had one question, and I know we're getting close to the end, Jean, but Jean, or the Irvine Police Department there, if you can provide us follow-up information of phone numbers or emails that we can use to report patterns, like you say, that we hear on University or Culver late at night. And then, we'll be sure to spread the word, but I have no idea, what phone number or email do we use to contact Irvine PD?
Sure, I will provide that to you, and then you can share it with everybody here on the Zoom session. So before we wrap up, any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, last call, everyone.
I actually have a question. Yeah, the signs that you put out, the portable signs, there was one near Culver right near the 405 exit, you know, and basically said, no loud vehicles, you'll be ticketed. Do you feel that had an effect on, you know, sort of curtailing street racing?
So those signs, it is our hope that they act as a preventive measure to people, or a reminder not to drive at excessive amounts of speed. But more than anything, I think what they do is they spread the word that law enforcement, specifically in the city of Irvine, is focusing on those type of violations. It's a message spreader. Our hope is that one person viewing it will go home and share that information with their family members. The family members will then talk about it with their neighbors, so on and so forth. And it's also showing the public that we hear your concerns. We're addressing them in every fashion we can, whether it be an actual enforcement on the message boards, through social media that we continually post, because we realize it's a quality of life issue and a safety hazard and a crime in many times. And so we're trying through every single angle we can to address this problem.
Thank you. I like the phrase message spreader, because that's what we are here for this meeting. We all can go out and be message spreaders. And it isn't just an issue for those of us like myself and the people here that maybe live near the main drags. I mean, it's everywhere and it echoes. And that's part of the, you know this, that's part of the complexity of it is it does echo. So it's hard to call in and be precise, because I think, did I hear it on Jamboree, or did I hear it 3 streets over somewhere in the, you know, IBC? So yeah, I'm a big fan of the message boards. And I love when I see them in Newport, and I love when I see them in Laguna. And yes, and so thank you. Okay, Larry, do you want to wrap it up for us? It's, yeah, we got 3 minutes. Oh, you had to unmute. Sorry.
I just wanted to thank everyone, particularly Mari, the Homeowners Association, for putting this together, and of course our outstanding police officers. We use the term a lot, community policing, and indeed Irvine has been a pioneer in this regard, and community policing has been key to our success in matters of public safety over the years, and our growing success. But to be successful, community policing requires the active engagement of the community itself. That's kind of the meaning of what we're trying to do tonight with this gathering. But we don't expect, of course, 100% or 50% of the people in the community to be actively engaged in these public safety issues. But even if it's just 1 or 2%, those people here tonight, maybe a few others who do pay attention to these things, do care about the quality of life as well as law enforcement in our community. Please continue what you're doing. Take advantage of the open channels of communication with our police department, and let's keep Irvine not only the safest city in the United States, but one of the most pleasant to live in as well. Gene, do I turn it back to you for posting numbers, or are we about wrapped? You got on mute.
I was going to say we're having a quiz before we go home, but I was joking. No, I think we're all set. Mari, I will get you the follow-up contact information. And I just want to, again, say what Larry said. Thank you to everybody that's being here. Thank you to the police officers for sharing the video, because that really brings it home. So thank you. Any housekeeping items, Mari? Are we good to go?
No, I just like to thank everyone for taking time out of their dinner hour. So all of you, thank you. And you are welcome to go back to eating dinner. Thank you, Council Member Larry Agran and Jean Barron, and especially Irvine PD. We really, really appreciate your help on this.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.